I stood there in the middle of the room, feeling a strange mix of calm and panic. The doors to the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton were wide open, sunlight pouring in, casting shadows on the white chairs lined up perfectly, the flowers arranged just so. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, or so they told me. The day Carrie and I were going to make it official, promise to love, cherish, and all that. I glanced down at my phone, feeling the hum of it in my hand, the screen lighting up with a new message. It was Carrie. Lisa is my maid of honor, or no wedding. That was it. The ultimatum I had been dreading. The one I had known deep down was coming. The one that would decide whether I had any say in my own life. I let out a shaky breath, my fingers hovering over the screen, but not in panic, more like in disbelief. A wedding that was supposed to symbolize love, commitment, and trust was now hinging on whether or not Carrie could still hold on to his ex-girlfriend, Lisa, in some twisted form of control. Without hesitation, I clicked open the email app. The cancellation emails were already drafted. I had prepared for this moment, had sensed this coming in the weeks before. The venue, the photographer, the florist, the vintage car company, the catering team. One by one, I clicked send, without a single second of doubt. The confirmation from the Ritz-Carlton popped up on my screen. Your cancellation has been processed. Carrie's face when I told him, that was the hardest part. I watched the smugness fall from his face, then the confusion, and then panic. He thought I was bluffing. He thought I would beg, cry, beg him to reconsider. But I didn't, I couldn't. Grace, you can't be serious, he had said, his voice cracking, but I was already on email number 4. His ultimatum wasn't a deal-breaker anymore. It was just proof of how little he truly understood about who I was. I was done. And if he wanted to make his ex the center of our lives, then fine. No wedding. His voice echoed in my head as I clicked send on the final cancellation. Grace, you can't just cancel our entire wedding. This is insane. But I already had. I had walked away from everything. The wedding dress, the flowers, the thousands of dollars in deposits, all of it. For the first time in months, I felt free. Flashback to the engagement, the illusion of perfection. The wedding wasn't always supposed to be a disaster. When Carrie proposed, on one knee in front of a crowd of our closest friends at my favorite restaurant, it was perfect. The kind of proposal that had everyone wiping tears from their eyes. He was charming, thoughtful, and loving. We were the couple everyone looked up to, and for a while, I believed it too. Carrie's family adored me. His parents welcomed me like a daughter, calling me every Sunday to check in, and I couldn't help but love them back. I felt like I was finally going to fit in somewhere, after years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. And then there was Carrie's ex, Lisa. She had been around for a long time, but I never worried about her. I thought she was just a relic from his past. He spoke about her like she was a chapter long closed, someone he'd grown out of after their messy breakup. The kind of ex that everyone has, but you never need to think about again. At least, that's what I told myself. But the first time I met Lisa, it wasn't the closure I expected. It was weird. She was beautiful, and her smile, too familiar, like she knew something I didn't. The way she laughed at Carrie's jokes like they shared a private world I wasn't part of it made my stomach turn. Carrie was quick to reassure me that it was all fine. Lisa was just family, he said. She's a part of my life that I'll always care about. And for a while I tried to ignore it. I thought I was being paranoid. But when Carrie started disappearing more often, showing up late from work meetings or catching up with friends, the cracks started to form. Small things. Subtle. Like his phone always going to silent when he walked into a room, or how he seemed to talk less when Lisa was mentioned. The truth started to settle in. It wasn't just that Carrie and Lisa had a past, they had unfinished business. And I was the one stuck in the middle, trying to build a future with a man who was still emotionally tethered to someone else. And that's when I started questioning everything. Was I settling? Was this relationship truly the future I wanted, or was I just running from loneliness and chasing a dream that wasn't even mine? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't part of Carrie's world, I was the accessory to it. The woman who would play the role of the perfect fiancé while he still tried to keep his ex in the picture. And that's when I knew something had to change. And when that text came in the morning of the wedding, Carrie's ultimatum. I was ready. I just didn't know how ready I was. Carrie walks into the venue, expecting to see me in my dress, ready for the ceremony. He doesn't know yet that I've just canceled everything. How will he react when he finds out the wedding is off? I can still hear the sound of my heels clicking against the cold marble floor of the Ritz-Carlton's grand ballroom. The rhythm was slow, deliberate, almost haunting. The soft murmur of voices around me, the clinking of glasses, everything felt like a blur. Everyone was moving in their own little worlds, oblivious to what was happening just a few feet away. I stood there, holding my phone, my finger hovering over the last send button. Carrie wasn't in the room yet, but I knew the moment he walked through the doors, everything would change. The wedding, our wedding, would be officially over. As the confirmation emails pinged one by one, something inside me shifted. This was it. This was the moment I was finally free. It was only when I heard the sharp sound of Carrie's voice across the room that I snapped back to reality. Flashback, the illusion of perfection. When Carrie and I first met, everything about him seemed perfect. He had the perfect smile, the perfect job, the perfect life. He came from a family who had money but didn't flaunt it. His friends adored him, and I was quickly wrapped up in his world. I thought I was living in some kind of fairy tale. I remember our first real conversation, how he told me about his family. The dinners at his parents' house were always grand affairs. His mom, Catherine, was graceful and warm. His dad, Robert, always cracked jokes and made everyone feel at home. He made me feel like I belonged somewhere for the first time in my life. It was easy to fall in love with the life they promised me, with Carrie promising me that he would be my future. The first seeds of doubt. But just a few months after our engagement, things started to shift. Small things at first, little hints that Carrie might not be as perfect as he seemed. It started when he started speaking about his ex, Lisa, a little too fondly. "She's been there for me through so much," he'd say casually. "I'm glad we're still friends." I didn't think much of it at first. After all, everyone has an ex or two that they're still on good terms with, right? But it wasn't just that. There was always something about the way Carrie would glance at his phone when Lisa texted, how the smile on his face would linger a little too long. A part of me knew that there was something off, something I wasn't being told, but I was too caught up in the idea of the perfect life to confront it. The subtle manipulation. Over time, it became clearer that I wasn't just dating Carrie, I was dating the image of Carrie that he wanted to project to the world. His charm, his success, the way everyone looked at us, this was the life he wanted. I was the trophy fiancé, perfect for the world's view but not entirely perfect for him. The more we planned the wedding, the more I felt like I was becoming a character in his story, not the lead role in my own. I remember one conversation in particular, after we'd chosen the venue for the wedding. Carrie had pushed for the Ritz-Carlton. He said it would look good on Instagram. He said it would impress our families and friends. "What do you think about the blue and gold theme?" he asked, his voice casual, like he was asking about a new restaurant to try. It wasn't about what I wanted, it was about what he wanted, what everyone else would think of us. "It's the most elegant, don't you think?" It wasn't about the theme, really. It wasn't about the venue. It was about the need to keep up appearances. Flashback, the first time I saw the real Carrie. Then there was the day we were choosing the wedding dress. I had picked out a dress that I loved, simple, elegant, nothing too over the top. But when I showed it to Carrie, his face shifted. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at it, his eyes cold for a moment before he forced a smile. "It's fine," he said, "but I think you can do better, maybe something more dramatic." I tried to explain that I wanted something understated, something that felt like me, but Carrie wasn't listening. He wasn't thinking about what I wanted. It was always about what was expected, about how we would look. When I called my mom that evening, hopping for support, she was distant. "I think you're just overreacting," she said. "Carrie's a great guy. He just wants everything to be perfect for you." That's when I realized something. It wasn't just Carrie. It wasn't just his need to control every detail of our lives. It was my family, too. They were enabling him, turning a blind eye to the things that bothered me, telling me to just accept it. They didn't see it because they didn't want to. They were too focused on keeping the peace, on keeping up the image of a perfect family. The confrontation with Lisa. But the real turning point came when Carrie mentioned Lisa for the first time during our wedding planning. It was subtle at first, almost casual, but my heart sank. You know, Carrie said one evening, sipping his wine, Lisa and I have been talking more lately. We've been through a lot together, and I think it's important that she be involved in the wedding. I mean, she's family. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I could feel the tension in the air, the sudden shift in the atmosphere. I had always known there was something there, but hearing him say it out loud, it was like he was saying that his past, his ex, his history, was more important than the future I had thought we were building. I tried to stay calm, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. You want her to be in our wedding party. He looked at me, surprised by my reaction. Yeah, is that a problem? I froze. You're asking me to accept her in a place that should be mine. You're asking me to accept that she's more important than me, that she's part of this, part of us. Carrie didn't respond right away. He just stared at me, as if trying to gauge my reaction. I could see the wheels turning in his head, as if he was calculating whether I would accept it, just like I had accepted everything else. And that's when I realized, he wasn't asking me to compromise. He wasn't asking me to share him. He was asking me to accept that he would never truly choose me over her. The final straw, the ultimatum. The following morning, the text came through, and it was exactly what I had feared. Carrie had made his choice. Lisa is my maid of honor, or no wedding. I sat there staring at the phone. The weight of it all crashed down on me. For a long time, I had been holding on to the idea of this perfect life, the perfect wedding, the perfect future with Carrie, but I had been holding on to a lie. I took a deep breath, staring at the text. The wedding, the life I had thought we would have, it wasn't just slipping through my fingers. It was gone. The choice had been made for me, and I wasn't going to fight for it anymore. Carrie walks into the ballroom, his face alight with excitement, thinking he's walking into a celebration. But when he sees me standing there, the emails sent, the venue canceled, everything officially called off, his smile fades. Grace, what's going on? What did you do? I look at him, the man I thought I would marry, and simply say, you made your choice. Now I'm making mine. How will Carrie react to the wedding being canceled? Does he finally realize the gravity of his actions, or is it too late to fix anything? The moment Carrie walked into the ballroom, his face radiated excitement. He probably thought he was going to walk into a scene of chaos, with me sobbing, begging for him to reconsider. Instead, he found me standing there, calm, almost eerily so. The sound of people milling about, adjusting chairs, and fixing flower arrangements echoed around us. It was as if the entire world was still moving on, even though everything for me had just stopped. Carrie's eyes darted around the room, searching for the familiar faces of our guests. But instead of that, all he saw was me. And the air between us was thick with something he couldn't quite name, dread, disbelief, and something else. Something he hadn't expected, rejection. Grace, what's going on? What did you do? His voice cracked as he spoke. It wasn't anger or confusion, it was desperation. Desperation to control the situation. I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. He had probably imagined this moment 100 times, but not like this. Not with me standing here, resolute, the emails already sent, the venue already canceled. Everything he had built up to this point was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. What's going on, Carrie? I said, finally breaking the silence. My voice was steady, almost too calm. You made your choice, I'm just executing it. He froze, his mouth opening and closing, as if the words he needed to say were stuck in his throat. I could see his mind racing. He probably thought this was just a tantrum, a test, a moment of emotional drama he could talk me out of. But the thing was, I was past that. I was beyond the negotiations and the compromises. Carrie stepped closer, his brow furrowing. Grace, please, you can't be serious. You can't just cancel everything. It's too much money. Too many people, our families, our friends. And what about me, Carrie? I cut him off. What about what I want? You've been so busy trying to make everyone else happy that you forgot I had a say in this. His face turned pale. I didn't forget, Grace. I'm just trying to make things work. Lisa, been in my life for a long time, and it's not easy letting go of someone who's meant that much to me. It's important for me, for closure. I shook my head, trying to keep the bitterness from rising in my throat. Closure, Carrie, this isn't closure. This is you still holding on to a part of your past that's toxic. I'm your fiancé. I should be the one you're focusing on, but instead, I'm constantly being compared to her. I don't compare you to her, Carrie protested. But she's part of my past, Grace. And if we're going to start our life together, I need to know that I've put all that behind me, and I can't do that if you're going to make this about her. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. This wasn't about him and Lisa anymore, it wasn't even about the wedding. This was about me, my choice, my life. The moment I realized I was losing myself in this relationship, everything became clear. I wasn't being asked to choose between Carrie and Lisa, I was being asked to choose between myself and the life Carrie had planned for us. Carrie, I said, forcing myself to speak clearly, you've already made your choice. You just don't want to admit it. You've been emotionally unavailable for months, and now you want me to accept Lisa as your maid of honor as if that's not a problem. As if I'm just supposed to swallow that. His face twisted, his hands shaking as he looked at me. Grace, I'm trying, I really am, but you're being unreasonable. Lisa is important to me. Important to you, I repeated, my voice rising. What about me? Do I even matter? Or am I just supposed to be the woman who stands beside you while you chase ghosts? I saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes, and for a second I almost felt sorry for him. But the truth was, he wasn't the one who needed fixing. It wasn't my job to heal him from his past. I wasn't the one who had been making this relationship impossible to navigate. He had been all along. Flashback, the moments leading up to this. Our relationship had been like a house built on sand, beautiful on the outside but unstable at its core. Carrie wasn't a bad person, but he was too absorbed in the image of us, the facade of what we could be, to actually see me. He never really saw me, and now that we were about to marry, I had to wonder, had I been blind too? I remembered the way he would shrug off my concerns, always rationalizing his behavior, always making me feel like I was the one who was overreacting. It wasn't the first time I had questioned myself. There had been moments before. The time he told me I looked better when I wasn't wearing makeup, or how he constantly made little digs about my career, about my independence, as if those were things that needed to be corrected. Then there was the wedding itself, the way everything was about his dreams, his ideas. When we talked about where to have the ceremony, he pushed for the Ritz-Carlton, claiming it was classy. But when I mentioned a small, intimate venue, something that reflected us, our story, he dismissed it outright. Too casual, he'd said. It wasn't just the wedding, though, it was the little things. The way he always had an answer for everything, the way he dominated every conversation. The way he slowly chipped away at the things I loved, my job, my friends, even my hobbies, until all that was left was Carrie's version of me, his version of our life. Present day, confrontation in the ballroom. Carrie reached out for my hand, his voice desperate. Grace, please, you can't do this. We've been planning this for months. You're not thinking clearly. We've talked about our future, about what this wedding means, about what it means for us. Us? I scoffed. This isn't about us. This is about you and your ex. I'm just here for the ride, aren't I? You've already made up your mind. And I'm supposed to sit here and just take it. His face darkened, the anger rising. You're making a huge mistake. You can't just walk away from everything because of one person. One person, I repeated. You think this is about Lisa. It's about me, my boundaries. You're making decisions about our future without even asking me what I want. His jaw clenched, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the back of a chair. You're being selfish. You're not thinking about us, about our future. Don't you dare tell me about our future, I said, stepping closer. You've been choosing your past this whole time. If you really wanted a future with me, you would have chosen me. But you haven't. You're choosing Lisa, and you're choosing everything that comes with her. Carrie took a step back, like I had slapped him. The realization hit him then. This wasn't a fight he could win by talking me down. It was over, but there was something else in his eyes. Panic. As Carrie stood there, frozen, staring at me, the weight of what I had just done hit him. But it didn't end there. His phone buzzed in his pocket, another message. Lisa. He glanced at it, then at me. The truth was finally out in the open. Carrie had always known he had the power to control the narrative, but what if this time it was his turn to lose control? Will Carrie finally face the consequences of his choices? And how far will he go to try and win Grace back? I could feel the tension in the air as Carrie's phone buzzed again, the vibrations sharp and unnerving against the silence that had settled between us. His eyes flickered to the screen. He couldn't help it. Lisa. I saw it all without him even needing to tell me. That was the moment I knew. He had made his choice, and no matter what he said now, he would always put her first. I had stood in that ballroom, surrounded by the chaos of last-minute adjustments for a wedding that was never going to happen, but still, something in me snapped. I didn't need a text or a confirmation from him. The look on his face said it all. Carrie finally broke the silence, his voice shaky. Grace, please, you don't understand, I cut him off. I do understand, I understand perfectly. My voice came out calm, almost detached. I wasn't angry anymore. No, that emotion had run its course. This wasn't about anger. It was about something deeper. Something I hadn't seen until this very moment, the truth. The realization that I had been holding on to an illusion, a fairy tale that never existed in the first place. You don't get it, Carrie. I'm not your backup. I'm not your second choice or your emotional safety net. You wanted a wedding, a celebration for everyone but us. You wanted Lisa there because, in some way, she was always more important to you than I was. And I can't live with that anymore. His face twisted, desperate, a flash of panic overtaking the cocky confidence he once had. No, Grace, it's not like that. I never wanted to hurt you. This isn't how I thought it would be. But it was how it was. It had always been this way. Flashback, the day I realized I wasn't seen. The first time I truly saw Carrie for what he was, not who I wanted him to be, happened weeks before the wedding. We had been sitting on the couch, casually scrolling through wedding magazines, when a text came through. Carrie's face changed immediately, his usual calm demeanor slipping into something more guarded. Who was that? I asked, my voice casual, but the edge of suspicion already creeping in. He had already been spending more time on his phone, ducking into the other room when texts from Lisa came in. It's just work stuff, he replied, but the way he said it, his voice tight, made me pause. He had been lying to me, not about something big but about something small, and it made all the difference. The small things always do. Are you sure about that? I pressed, trying to stay calm, trying to be rational. Yeah, Grace, he snapped. Can we just enjoy the wedding planning? This is stressful enough. Stressful? That was the word he always used when things didn't go his way. It was always stressful when he was questioned, always stressful when I started pushing back. What had once seemed like caring concern was now just a manipulation, a tactic to keep me in line. Present day, the ultimate confrontation. Grace, listen to me. This isn't what you think. I need closure. You don't understand. I can't fully move on without Lisa being a part of this. It's not about her, it's about me. I need this, Grace. Carrie's words tumbled out in a frantic rush. The urgency in his voice, the desperation, it was almost pathetic. But I couldn't feel sorry for him anymore. Not this time. I stood there, my arms crossed, taking a deep breath, watching as his carefully constructed walls crumbled. The man I had once loved, trusted, was no longer the person in front of me. He was a stranger. A stranger who was asking me to accept that his ex, the woman who had once broken his heart, who had stolen from him, would always have a place in our lives, in our relationship. I reached for my phone, staring at the screen as I prepared to send the final cancellations. The venue was done. The photographer was done. The caterer, done. The wedding was over. No, Carrie, I said softly, my voice final. It's over. I'm done trying to fix this for you. I clicked send on the last email, the confirmation from the vintage car rental service, and it felt like I had cut through the chains that had bound me to this farce. I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need anything from him. Shocking incident, a call for help. The reality of what I'd just done hit me only after I sent the final confirmation. Carrie, still standing there, staring at his phone as the messages about the wedding cancellation poured in, suddenly grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the ballroom. I stood still for a moment, feeling like I had just made the hardest decision of my life, but it wasn't a hard decision anymore. I was done negotiating with him. I was done living my life on his terms. It was my life, and I had a right to take it back. Just as I turned to walk away, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a vendor or a family member. It was a text from Marcus, my older brother. Grace, you need to get to the hospital. Carrie's been in a car accident. I felt the blood drain from my face, my heart freezing in my chest. I quickly grabbed my purse, ready to bolt, but a sense of coldness settled over me. I had just made the decision to end my engagement with Carrie, but now he needed me. Could I really just walk away? Could I be heartless after everything that had happened? I looked at my phone one last time, the wedding still looming in the background. It was over. But now this was something else entirely. I rushed to the hospital, my mind racing. Was this his way of getting my attention? Was this some last-ditch effort to pull me back in? Or was it real? Was Carrie really hurt? When I arrived at the ER, I was hit with the scent of antiseptic, the buzz of fluorescent lights, the low murmur of other patients in the waiting room. The nurse looked at me with a slight hesitation, like she knew who I was before I even said a word. "Are you here for Mr. Mitchell?" she asked, her voice sympathetic. "Is he okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. The nurse sighed and walked toward me, her gaze softening as she spoke. "You should talk to the doctor. He's in critical condition." I stood frozen, my thoughts swirling. What did that mean for me, for us? Would I be there for him now, after everything? Or had I truly walked away from the life I had built with him? Will Grace help Carrie, or has she truly left that life behind for good? What will happen when she's forced to confront the consequences of her decision? I could hear the steady beeping of the machines as I walked through the sterile hospital hallways, my heart thudding in my chest. Carrie, my mind couldn't stop replaying the text from Marcus. Carrie's been in a car accident. I had just walked away from everything we had planned. The wedding, the life we had built together, and now here I was, walking into a hospital to check on him. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog. This wasn't the time to question my choices. I had made them, and I would stand by them, no matter what happened. But as the nurse led me to the waiting room, the weight of what was unfolding hit me in a way I didn't expect. What if I was wrong? The room felt suffocating, the fluorescent lights above buzzing faintly as I sat down in the sterile plastic chair. I checked my phone again, more out of habit than necessity. The email from the venue cancellation still sat in my inbox. The confirmation of everything that had just been undone, gone, vanished. And now here I was. Flashback, the distant warning signs. I remembered the last few months leading up to the wedding. The warning signs had been there. The subtle tension, Carrie's need to control every aspect of our lives, the way he had taken charge of the wedding planning without ever once asking for my opinion. I had been so busy appeasing him, thinking I had to get everything perfect, that I ignored the small things. The way he would brush off my concerns about his ex, Lisa. The way he would look at her texts in a way that made me feel small. The way he slowly withdrew from me emotionally, and I, in my own desperate attempt to fix things, just kept trying harder. But no matter how much I tried, nothing ever seemed to be enough. He wanted me to accept a version of our life that didn't include me, and the more I tried to make it work, the more I was losing myself. Present day, the doctor's visit. The doctor finally walked into the room, his white coat rustling as he adjusted his glasses. I stood up, my heart racing. "Miss Winters, I'm afraid your fiancé has suffered some serious injuries," the doctor began, his voice clinical, professional. "He was in a car accident earlier today. Fortunately, his vital signs are stable for now. But he's got a few broken ribs, a concussion, and we're running a series of scans to check for any internal bleeding." I nodded, trying to hold it together, but inside, my emotions were a whirlpool. Is this what he wanted? For me to drop everything and rush to his side, just like I had always done. The doctor continued, detailing the scans they had ordered. "We are concerned about the concussion, and we will need to monitor him overnight. There may be some complications, but we won't know until the tests are complete." My stomach churned as I sat back down. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared for the feeling, the guilt, and the strange sense of duty to someone who had made me feel insignificant for months. I glanced at the clock. The wedding was supposed to have started in an hour. Flashback, the manipulation. It wasn't just the wedding, was it? It was everything that led up to this moment. Carrie's subtle manipulations. the times he had convinced me I was overreacting, that I was being too emotional. I remembered one conversation in particular, a week before the wedding. We were sitting in our living room, flipping through the seating chart for the 100th time, trying to figure out where everyone would sit. I mentioned something about needing a break, maybe postponing the wedding for a bit to focus on us instead of the production. "You're stressing over nothing, Grace," Carrie had said, without looking up from the chart. "This wedding is supposed to be for us, remember? I know it's a lot of work, but you're making it a bigger deal than it needs to be." I had sat there, staring at him, the weight of the words settling on my chest. Maybe it was that moment, in the silence between us, that I realized I was drowning. I was so caught up in the wedding and trying to meet his expectations that I wasn't even sure who I was anymore. The X-rays and evidence. As I sat in the waiting room, I began to wonder about Carrie's accident. Was this an accident? Or was this part of his manipulation? Part of his ongoing need to have me around, to pull me back in? He had always been good at getting what he wanted, using guilt as a weapon. Had he planned this, knowing I would come running to him when he needed me most? After everything we'd been through, after everything I had finally walked away from, could he have engineered this to reel me back in? I shook my head, trying to rid myself of the thought. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe it was just bad luck. But a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. The way everything always seemed to fall into place for him, while I was left picking up the pieces. Carrie's state, reality sets in. A nurse came in shortly after the doctor's update, telling me that they had completed his X-rays and that there were no signs of serious internal injuries. But the concussion was concerning. Carrie needed rest and monitoring, and he would be in and out of consciousness for a while. I stood outside his room, peering through the small glass window, my thoughts still racing. Did I owe him this? Was this my responsibility? Part of me wanted to run, to leave, and never look back. I had already made the decision to end the wedding, to stop compromising who I was for his needs. But here I was, stuck in the reality of it all. Another part of me, the part that had been conditioned over the last few years, felt a strange sense of duty. I had always been the one to care for him when he was sick, to be there when he needed someone to fix things. I took a deep breath, walking into his room. He was lying on the bed, his face pale and bruised, his eyes closed. I could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. This was the test. Carrie's voice stirred as I walked closer. His eyes fluttered open, and he blinked a few times as if struggling to focus on me. "Grace," his voice was weak, strained. "I'm sorry, please don't leave me." I paused, my heart in my throat. His apology came too late, and for a moment I felt the flicker of something: guilt, anger, pity. But then I remembered everything I had walked away from, everything that led me here. I was about to speak, about to finally make a choice for myself when the door opened behind me. It was Marcus. His eyes flickered from me to Carrie, and I saw the frustration in his gaze. "Grace, we need to talk." What will Marcus say? Will Grace give in to the pressure and remain by Carrie's side? Or will she finally let go of everything that has held her back? The moment Marcus stepped into the room, the air shifted. It wasn't just the exhaustion and confusion I saw on his face. It was the quiet understanding, like he already knew exactly what had been going on, but was choosing to withhold his judgment. For now. I turned away from Carrie's bedside, who was still dazed, his eyes flickering in and out of focus. His hand reached weakly for mine, but I didn't take it. I couldn't. I had spent years trying to appease him, trying to make it all work, to make him work. But I wasn't the same person anymore, not after everything that had happened. Marcus's eyes met mine, and he crossed the room with the same purposeful stride that had always made him my protector. But today, I needed him to be something else. "Grace," he said softly, looking between me and Carrie, "we need to talk now." I nodded, taking a step back, feeling the weight of the situation press in on me. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what Marcus was about to say, but I knew I needed to hear it. I needed to hear it from someone who had watched me disappear over the last few years. Someone who still cared enough to tell me the truth, no matter how brutal. I motioned for him to follow me out into the hallway, away from Carrie. away from the sterile white room where everything seemed to fall apart. Flashback, the slow unraveling. I had been so caught up in my relationship with Carrie that I hadn't noticed how my own life had started to crumble. My career had been put on hold. My friends, those who once meant everything to me, had slowly started to fade from my life. Carrie, ever the control freak, had made it seem like his world was the only one that mattered. And I had played along, thinking that if I just showed him how committed I was, things would settle. It wasn't just the wedding. It was the way Carrie made decisions for us, the way he would push me aside when it came to my needs, the way he always made me feel small in front of others. One of the first times I noticed it was the day I had finally gotten a promotion at work. I had worked so hard for that promotion, and it was everything I had hoped for. But instead of celebrating with me, Carrie had brushed it off, asking me if I could take the promotion later. When I pushed back, he acted like I was the one being unreasonable. "We've got enough going on with the wedding, don't you think?" he had said, dismissing me completely. But it wasn't just that moment, it was the accumulation of them. The little comments that chipped away at my self-esteem. The way he would criticize my clothes, my choices, my everything. And I let him take it all because I believed I was supposed to. That's what you do in relationships, right? You compromise. Present day, the truth from Marcus. Marcus's voice brought me back to the present. "Grace, I know what you're doing. I know you're thinking you're doing the right thing by being here, by caring for him. But you're not. You're letting him drag you back into this cycle of control." I froze, feeling his words like a punch to the gut. The cycle of control. That's exactly what it had been. I opened my mouth to speak, but Marcus cut me off before I could say anything. "Grace, I've watched you disappear. I've seen it happen. You've gotten smaller, quieter, less of yourself every time he demanded something from you. And now you're in this position, stuck between being loyal to him and finally being loyal to yourself. But you can't keep sacrificing yourself for someone who doesn't see you." Tears welled up in my eyes as his words hit home. My brother had always been blunt, but it was never cruel. This was love in its most painful, honest form. He stepped closer, his expression softening. "I know you're scared. I know you feel like you're supposed to be here for him, but you've been here for him for too long. He's not the person you thought he was, Grace. He's using you. He's using his past with Lisa to manipulate you into staying. But you don't have to do this anymore." "I don't know what to do, Marcus," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm so lost, I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're Grace Winters," he said firmly. "The same woman who built a career from scratch, who never backed down from anything, who stood up for the truth no matter the cost. The same woman who once ran marathons, who fought for what was right. That woman is still in there." I looked at him, my chest tightening as everything hit me all at once. The guilt, the fear, the shame, but also something else, hope. For the first time, I realized something. I hadn't been living my own life. I had been living his. His expectations, his dreams, his needs. It was time for me to finally live my own life again. The confession, Carrie's manipulation unveiled. I stepped back into Carrie's room after a few moments, my mind clearer, the fog lifting. Carrie was awake now, his eyes unfocused, but he was still trying to reach out to me. His hands were trembling. "Grace," he rasped, his voice hoarse. "Please don't leave me, I need you. I've made mistakes, I know, but I can't live without you. You're everything to me." I felt nothing but a dull ache in my chest. He wasn't begging for me. He was begging for control. "You've always needed me, Carrie," I said, my voice steady, despite the surge of emotions. "But you've never actually seen me. You've never seen me for who I am. You've kept me small, kept me in a place where I didn't matter, and now you're asking me to stay because it's convenient for you." His face twisted with disbelief. "What are you talking about? I love you, Grace, I need you." "You don't love me, Carrie. You love the version of me that fits into your world, your plans. You never gave me a choice. And that's why I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm not your project." The words hit harder than I expected, but there was no turning back. Carrie's eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Regret. Anger. I didn't know anymore, and frankly, I didn't care. "I've already made my choice," I said quietly. "I'm walking away, and I'm choosing me. For the first time in years, I'm choosing myself." Just as I turned to leave, a familiar voice called out from the door. It was Catherine, Carrie's mother. Her face was tired, worn down, and there was a pleading look in her eyes that I hadn't expected. "I know you're angry," she said, her voice trembling, "but there's something you need to know, something that's been kept from you." I felt a chill run down my spine as I turned to face her. This was it, the truth I had been avoiding. What is Catherine about to reveal? Will Grace uncover the full truth behind Carrie's behavior, or is there more to the story than she's willing to face? Catherine stood in the doorway, her face lined with exhaustion and something else. Regret? Guilt? I couldn't be sure. She looked like a woman who had carried a secret for too long, one that was finally about to spill. I glanced at her, the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. I had just walked away from the man I was supposed to marry. I had made the hardest decision of my life. But here was Carrie's mother, looking at me with those sad eyes, asking me to listen to something more. "I know you've been hurt," Catherine said softly, stepping into the room. "I know what you think of me. I've seen the way you look at me, the way you look at Carrie and his mistakes. But there's something you need to understand, something you don't know about him." I narrowed my eyes. "I know everything I need to know, Catherine. I know who Carrie is, and I'm done trying to fix him." She shook her head slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know everything. Carrie's been through more than you think, and he's been hiding it from you because he was too afraid to face it himself. What he's doing to you, it's not just him, Grace, it's the pattern he's been trapped in for years." I stepped back, suddenly feeling like I was in over my head. "What are you talking about?" Catherine's eyes dropped to the floor, her hands twisting in her lap. "There's a history with Lisa, with his exes. Carrie's been hurt before Grace, but it's more than that. He's been manipulated. By her, by his own family. And he's never learned how to let go." I stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. "What are you trying to say? That he's just a victim in all of this?" "No," she said, her voice firm but quiet. "I'm saying that he's never learned how to be vulnerable, to let someone truly love him without fear. And when you came into his life, Grace, when you showed him something real, he didn't know how to handle it. So he kept pushing you away, keeping his distance, because that's what he was taught to do. His father did the same thing to him." I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. His father, I had never truly considered the weight of that dynamic. Catherine was right. I had always thought Carrie's distance, his coldness, his inability to connect fully was just part of his personality. But what if it was? What if he had been taught to be emotionally distant by the very man who was supposed to teach him how to love? Catherine took a deep breath, her eyes filled with sorrow. Carrie's father, Robert, never gave him the tools to truly love someone. He was always about appearances, about success, about maintaining control. And that's what Carrie learned. That's why he needed you to be perfect, to fit into his life without ever giving you the space to be yourself. I let out a slow breath, the truth hitting me in waves. Everything suddenly made sense. His need for control, his dismissal of my emotions, his inability to see me. "You're telling me Carrie learned how to love in a way that wasn't love at all," I said quietly, more to myself than to Catherine. "Yes," Catherine whispered. "And he's been afraid to let anyone see him for who he truly is. Afraid that if they did, they would leave him, just like his father did, just like Lisa did." I looked at Carrie, still unconscious in the bed behind me, a sick realization settling deep in my gut. This wasn't just about me and him. This was about the legacy of emotional abuse that ran through his family. "But this doesn't excuse what he did to me," I said firmly, finally finding my voice. "None of this changes the fact that he hurt me, that he chose his past, his ex, over our future." Catherine nodded, her eyes filled with regret. "I know, and you're right, but I want you to know, Grace, that Carrie is still trying to figure this out. He's not the man you think he is. He's not the man I thought he was either. But I've seen the man he could become, if he lets go of the past." I stood there for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Could he change? Could I forgive him for the years of manipulation and emotional neglect? Flashback, the turning point. In the weeks following our breakup, I began to understand something crucial. Carrie wasn't a villain. He wasn't the perfect man I had believed him to be, but he wasn't inherently bad either. He was a man trapped by his upbringing, by his own fears, by his inability to let go of the past. I had to accept that it wasn't my responsibility to heal him, to fix his emotional baggage. I had my own life to rebuild. And I realized that the longer I stayed, trying to fix him, the more I was breaking apart, the more I was losing who I truly was. Present day, therapy, healing, and accountability. It took weeks of therapy for me to truly start understanding how far I had fallen into Carrie's world. I had become someone else, someone who was constantly doubting her own worth, constantly compromising her dreams, constantly trying to make a relationship work when it wasn't healthy. And while I was in therapy, so was Carrie. But my therapist made it clear that he was the one who had to do the hard work. He had to confront his past, his manipulation, his fears. I couldn't save him, and I had to let go of the idea that I was the one who would be able to fix him. A few months later, I found myself standing at the edge of the pier, staring out over the water. It was a chilly evening, the air crisp with the early fall breeze. I could hear the soft lapping of the waves against the wood, the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I had done it. I had walked away from the toxic relationship that had consumed me for so long. I had finally chosen myself, and for the first time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground again. The scars of the past would always remain, but they weren't something that defined me anymore. They were a part of my journey, a part of my story, but they didn't define who I was. I was Grace Winters, and I had spent too many years shrinking to fit someone else's narrative. I pulled out my phone and checked my messages. A few from friends, a few from family, one from Marcus, just checking in to see how I was doing, and then a message from my old colleague, asking if I wanted to grab coffee sometime soon. A life outside of Carrie, outside of everything that had weighed me down for so long, was waiting for me, and I wasn't going to waste it. I sent a quick reply to Marcus, telling him I was doing better than ever, and as I typed the words, I realized something. I wasn't just getting back to my old self, I was becoming someone new, someone stronger. A week later, as I sat at my desk at the firm, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. When I finally opened it, the words on the screen froze me in place. It was a message from Carrie. Grace, I know I've hurt you, and I know I can't ask for your forgiveness, but I'm trying. I'm finally trying to change. I want to be a better man for myself and for you if you'll let me. I sat back in my chair, staring at the message for what felt like hours. Could I truly forgive him? Should I? Will Grace forgive Carrie and allow him back into her life, or has she truly moved on for good? What does forgiveness really mean, and is it worth it to open up the past once again?